Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webinar. I've got an amazing guest today. We are talking with Anwar Ahmed, who is, he's going to be embarrassed for me to say this. He is a tech powerhouse, certainly in my opinion. He's co-founder, chief product officer at Rؤية, which is a company that's not just building like AI telematics for cars, but actually driving, making driving smarter using like computer vision, GPS, accelerometers, and more to predict risky behavior. Anwar is based in London, but Rؤية is expanding fast, and most excitedly, of course, for us, is that they are making big steps into Saudi Arabia. That kind of tells you something about Saudi Arabia. It isn't just attracting great businesses, it's also attracting top tier talent. And Anwar definitely fits the bill. He's got 2 decades of product experience from global giants like Munich Re, Samsung, Willis Towers Watson. And he's also been named one of the top 100 Asian stars in UK tech. Anwar brings a remix of technical depth and real world commercial know-how, and I am super excited to talk to him today. Hello, Anwar. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Thank you, Aziz. And yeah, I mean, if it's good enough for Ronaldo Saudi, then good enough for Rüya.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is good enough. That I was actually at a boxing event in Riyadh last month, just before Ramadan, and not just Ronaldo. You know, you got Benzema was there. So many kind of world famous stars in sports in general that are making it over to the kingdom. It is the place to be at the moment. So, have you been
It's
over
a
there
shame.
recently?
I have, and I watched Ronaldo play and score 2 goals a couple of months ago when I was there. And I was going to say it's just a shame that I had a knee injury. Otherwise, maybe I could have,
Well,
brought my over and have the trials.
yeah, I think I'd probably be in the same space as you. Absolutely, I was a great footballer back in the day. They called me. I was a left back, mostly left back in the changing room, to be honest.
Well, played left and right.
It's great to have you, mate. I'm really looking forward to this. For those who don't know me, I'm Aziz, founder at Kush Digital. Rؤية is a client of ours, and we're really proud to have them a client. So, look, we want to jump straight into this, Anwar, and really, I want us to be focused around you and around Rؤيă's growth. So, firstly, why don't you just tell us in 2 minutes a bit about you and a bit about your background and what is the story? What's the genesis of Rؤية? How did you end up here?
Yeah, so I guess briefly about myself. So I studied engineering at college, at university. I've always been interested in technology, and I started off my career developing technology for the mobile phone industry, and more recently I've kind of transitioned more into the insurance or the insurtech world. And Rüya kind of came about. The idea was around, okay, insurance is based on risk, and it's based on data that the particular risk is providing. And we wanted to basically introduce some more, I guess, smart analysis of the data in order to define risk. So connecting the technology world and the insurance world, this is how Rüya was born. And the simple rule was that if you can avoid an accident from happening in the first place, from an insurance point of view, but more importantly, from an operational point of view, you remove the need to kind of deal with that situation. And there's obviously a cost implication, there's loss of time, loss of earnings. So this is basically the original vision for Rüya. This is where we started off from.
And when you think back to like the journey that you guys have been on, I guess like building any product from the ground up is hard work. Like it's long nights. It's I guess probably as I think back in my career, the biggest decisions aren't really the product decisions; they're the hiring decisions. What do you think
Yeah.
are like the biggest lessons that you've learned building this from the ground up?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It's not always the big fancy stuff, like the big decision. I guess the advantage I had over my co-founder is that I've done a startup in this space before with Hymex, so I've had some experience of the pitfalls. And you're spot on to say the hiring and the process and the structure is probably so much more important, especially at the beginning, because you're going to be recruiting people who you're going to depend on, and they're going to be the lifeblood of the product development, the company. So recruitment was probably the toughest part. Finding the right person with the right passion, if you like, in what we're doing was probably a tough part. And the rest of it is just hard work. As an individual, you got to be committed. You got to be willing to put in the extra hours, and also having a co-founder and having partners and investors who believe in that vision is so much. It goes all in that whole package, and everybody needs to kind of play their roles. But obviously, for us, this is the only thing we're doing, and committing all our time and all our energy into one thing, and starting to see some benefits kind of gives you the energy back to continue and do it again next day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's probably, because it can be so draining, right? And this is something I talk to my guys about all the time. You have to learn, resilience, grit, not getting too up, but so that you don't get too down, if you know what I mean. You kind of have to always live in that middle space to be able to sustain that energy over a long time. So let's talk a little bit about Rؤية. For people who live on the far side of the moon who have not yet come across Rؤية, I'm sure they will. In a nutshell, what is it? What does it do? What's the benefits?
So the companies and the product is being built to help reduce accidents, make roads safer for the driver, make roads safer for other users of the road, and more importantly, from a societal point of view, making the roads safer for pedestrians, cyclists, and other people that are using the pavement as well as the road. So we're really trying to change the needle on road safety. So in a nutshell, is there's a lot of other facets to it, but it's a driver behavior change.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically a dash cam, right? It looks just like a dash cam, but all of the value, all of the power is in the AI and the data that comes behind it. So, I mean, that must just have been. I can understand from like an insurance perspective, like where the market opportunity arose, but was it part of the original vision to integrate AI into the product, and what challenges have you sort of experienced doing that?
Yeah, so one of the features of this is the AI component. And the reason this was part of the original vision is because we wanted to basically provide continuous feedback to the driver, continuous coaching. So before, Rؤية, there's other products which does the same thing, but it happens after the event. So you would basically get feedback how well you're driving through a driving score, through a report. But that incident has moved on. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to intervene at that moment in time. So if you're using your phone and you're doing 70 kilometers an hour on the road, we wanted to basically alert the driver to say, you need to get off your phone through some sort of, kind of driver feedback. And the analogy I use with a lot of people is that I'm old enough to remember when we didn't have seatbelts in a lot of the cars in the early days, and seatbelts was introduced. A lot of people still didn't wear seatbelts. Where now, most cars, if you get inside them, you don't put the seatbelt on, it will make some sort of noise to the point that you will, over time, get into the habit of naturally getting in your car, putting the seatbelt on, and then it becomes a natural habit. So our ultimate goal is to try and get to that sort of area where people naturally just behave, so they focus on the road and not, get distracted by phone usage, eating, drinking, or trying to take a nap while they're driving as well. So AI is a critical part of that, product solution.
Yeah, absolutely, because it creates that feedback loop. I'm trying to remember the book where I read this study. It may have been Influence and the Power of Persuasion. by Robert Cialdini, I think it was.
Yeah.
But basically, there's really good science on the lag time between behavior and feedback and the impact on behavioral change. And the more instantaneous the feedback to a behavior, the more likely that behavioral change will stick in the long term. And I guess that's really that's at least half of what you're solving for, right? You're trying to create that behavioral change by giving instant feedback to drivers.
Yeah, and I think it's, again, different people react differently, and also the life cycle of that behavioral change depends on how, I was going to say how old you are, but it's like how much experience you have. Because if you have a new driver that starts driving, they will start to have some behaviors which may be positive or negative. And if you can actually turn them into positive behaviors, you have a shorter cycle. Where if somebody's been driving for, say, 30 years, and their behavior is that never wear a seatbelt, always on the phone, or, we've seen some cases somebody's watching a movie while they're driving, changing that behavior may be a slow process. So it needs to be continuously reinforced, recalibrated, and data is part of the big part of our platform. So we're continuously monitoring the data to see how we can actually encourage these people to kind of change behavior. So it's this continuous cycle of, trying something, looking at the output, changing it, trying it again, looking at the output. And I guess this is how, the AI and machine learning concept really works.
I think in Saudi, certainly at this stage in your growth cycle, really the biggest benefits are like for fleet managers and operational directors who have got fleets, right?
Yeah, I think, like, for me, I see it slightly broadly. I think for me, when you look at statistics around the world, road traffic accidents is a major factor in loss of lives and injuries. If you break that down to regions, kind of Europe, the Americas, Asia, and the Middle East and Africa, vast majority of that is concentrated around, kind of parts of Asia, parts of Middle East, and parts of Africa. So, I guess from a holistic vision point of view, we wanted to kind of build our product, focus in the market, which is going to have the biggest impact overall, but then narrow it down to the business, because at the end of the day, we're a for-profit business and we're not doing it as a charity. We'd like to benefit society. The people who benefit the most are the fleet operations and that particular team. The byproduct of all of this is the insurance as well, because if you can avoid paying out a claim for one of your policies, that means more money in your pocket. But for businesses, having eyes on the road that helps you make faster decisions, prevent accidents from happening in the first place, means you get higher vehicle utilization, your operations running more smoothly. If a vehicle gets into an accident, the driver could be injured, which means he or she will be off the road, which means you have to find an alternative. So it kind of reduces these basic problems, but the data gives them a better insights into the type of drivers that needs further education or training, or the type of drivers they should be hiring for future growth as well. So that insight helps them make more strategic decisions as well.
Yeah, and I think some of the case studies that are coming out of Saudi Arabia just prove that point. You've got like ridiculous return on investments. In terms of time to return on investment has been incredible for some of your clients.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, and we've had one use cases where you'd had one client which had huge number of speeding tickets or huge number of fines, and it's always difficult for them to kind of find out why it was happening, who was doing it. Well, again, using technology like the Rؤية vision telematics solution, firstly, you're deterring people from breaking the rules, or some cases the law. And secondly, when the event does happen, it's easy for you to pinpoint when it happened and who was the person who was actually the culprit. And then you can take the necessary actions.
And in that particular case study that you're talking about, the company saw a massive reduction in speeding tickets as well, just by virtue of the fact that you had Rؤية installed, right?
Yeah, and again, talking about the book you quoted and the psychology behind it, when you basically provide a technology like the rear dash cam, it can feel like, like it's invading my privacy. But over time, it has a genuine impact on the person's behavior, because it's providing assistance, but it's also having somebody who's kind of like a digital angel watching over you, if you like, somewhat. So I think, for operational managers, it basically means that if they can reduce those behaviors, it has an impact on the speeding ticket. And I think in some cases we've seen between 70 and 80% reduction within a very short period of time.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you do it.
They call that the Hawthorne effect, from a famous study at Hawthorne Manufacturing, where the existence of an observer, purely the existence of an observer, changes behavior. And I've had this discussion with you and with some of the leadership of Rؤية in the past. I can certainly, from a European perspective, I can understand individual drivers' feeling of apprehension, being essentially having that digital angel with them. But I make comparisons to other clients that we've got. We've got a client that has gyms in like 5 different boxing gyms in 6 different countries now, and they have CCTV cameras in all of their gyms, centrally managed. Not, partly for the safety of fighters in the gym, but more importantly, to watch the coaches and to grade the coaches on their own behavior. And I think when you're in a workplace environment, that I think that's sort of to be expected, that you're going to be graded, and it's for your own benefit, for your own benefit. I think that's one of the things that really brings to the table, that data-driven behavioral change for the benefit of the company, for the benefit of the individual, and for the benefit of society. What do you think? And again, that's why I love Rؤية as a business, because it lines so well with the societal objectives of Vision 2030 in Saudi Arabia. So what was the sort of key driver behind entering Saudi? I know you've covered that in part. And have you been surprised by anything in the Saudi market?
I would say I've been surprised in a positive way, in terms of, so when we first met some senior CEOs of potential clients and partners in the kingdom, what struck me the most is that these CEOs were talking about leapfrog rather than do an evolution of transitional technology. They wanted to leapfrog, and basically, they want to start the foundation at data-driven, AI-based, economy, if you like. And I think for me, the biggest opportunity I saw, and one of the reasons we basically moved our business to Saudi, we've got office in Riyadh, we've got a sizable team that's covering the country, and soon expanding to the region, is that it is perfectly placed for us to basically support the entire region, all the way through to the entire African continent as well. And if you look at, I've worked largely for European and US companies in the technology spaces, and the last startup we did was based in the US. Middle East has largely been ignored, because generally what happens is that you get technology that gets parachuted in, and then people parachute out, which is fine. It's been working up until now. But what I liked about Vision 2030 was that they were trying to change that conversation entirely and think of the future in a different way. So for us, the ambition was to become a Saudi AI company, which can serve the country and export to the region, supporting the region, expanding into Africa, expanding to Asia. And AI is data-driven, so data has a bias. So we wanted to create the data bias, which basically served the people in the area. And for me, I saw, and again with my co-founder and the investment partner, we saw an opportunity where we can actually fill that gap, build a technology in Saudi, and export those products outside the kingdom in the future as well. So we have ambitions to kind of grow beyond the kingdom and support the region. And I guess the nice thing about Saudi is actually has quite a neutral relationship with the entire world. it has a neutral relationship with the countries in Asia, with the countries in the West, and the countries, a lot of the countries in Middle East and Africa as well. So it's a really nice place to do business, and we hope that we will be able to leverage these opportunities, especially in the current climate where Saudis and the Middle East is in a neutral place at the moment.
100%. Yeah, I think that like Saudi's positive international and geopolitical position definitely helps you. But as you're talking there, I was thinking that actually, strategically from a learning data set perspective, Saudi is basically perfect because geographically it's massive, and it is very much a driving country. People do drive, and they'll drive distances. So
they'll drive to the local.
So I was trying to explain this to someone that, like, in the UK, if you want, in the morning you wanted to go and get the paper or go and get some milk, you'd walk out and you'd walk, maybe it could be 2 kilometers to the corner shop to buy some milk and come back. You'd never think about getting in the car. But yeah, that seems alien to people here. I guess it's the weather difference that does that.
That does impact it.
But I get, that the data that you're able to collect to help feed the AI, to help train the AI, you've got you've got sort of crowded city type data from Riyadh, Jeddah, but then you've also got commute type data, but then you've also got transportation data as well. People are driving from Riyadh to Mecca. So yeah, it's like a really smart product decision. Has moving to Saudi impacted any of your other future product decisions, your product roadmap in any way?
I don't think it has. I think it's going to given us a different perspective and different level of prioritization on what we work on first. I think from a product strategy point of view, this product works anywhere because you have roads, you have cars, you have risk, you have bad drivers and good drivers. So from that point of view, this product is being built and we are developing in such a way that we can basically run this anywhere, and we can comply with any local government regulation as well. And I think for me, like the data that you mentioned, the whole of the Middle East region is growing very fast. Saudi is growing at a pace that is probably not seen in other countries. Maybe we've seen it in China in the 90s. The infrastructures, roads, buildings are changing extremely fast as well. Now, I'm hopeful that Ruya very soon can get to a point where we can tell you very quickly, if you wanted to know, where new roads are being built, because we will get that data where we will see, okay, on legacy maps from companies like Google and Apple and Nokia, these legacy companies have built data in such a way they may not be able to update that data within an hour, within a day, within a week. But we'll be able to see, okay, legacy companies like Google is showing me there's no road here, but our technology is saying there's a road here because we can see that from the AI component, but we can see that from the data. This information allows us to kind of draw a very accurate picture of the current environment, or for the whole country, or for the whole region. And this basically starts to introduce the value that we can bring as a business in the future to the entire region and to the kingdom, where we can actually help with future development of kind of city plannings, route planning, and managing congestion, productivity of people. So for me, that's what excites me, and kind of like of the opportunities that Saudi is going to bring, not just to us, but to other companies who've chosen to base themselves in the kingdom.
I think that's a really interesting point, because that happens so often to me. Not just in Saudi, in Dubai, it's happened. Well, in the UAE, it's happened to me 5 or 6 times. It's not just about new roads that have been built and Google isn't up to date, but it's roads that were there that are no longer there. And Google, and that's even worse, because you're like, hold on, it's saying turn right, and this road doesn't even exist, and suddenly you find yourself out in the desert. So, that brings me on to kind of the next point, and you kind of mentioned this. AI is data. So if we project out, it seems to me that Ru'ya is likely to be predominantly a data company, a data provider in the future. And you've mentioned one of those sort of places where, for urban planning, city planning, and things like that. Where else can you kind of see that that horizontal shift or that horizontal market opportunity in 5, 10 years time?
Yeah, I mean, the root of any AI company, whether you're doing vision related one, which is what we're doing, or language or sound, data is key part of it. The more you have, the faster you can learn from it, and your models become more and more accurate. So without that, it's that's like the lifeblood of any AI startup, AI company. Once you have sufficient amount of data and sufficient amount of intelligence, you can actually start to create new product offering or new services. And for us, one of the big challenge a lot of our clients face right now is that they still use a lot of manual processes. So I went to a site for one client which does oil and gas transportation. They have dedicated rooms where security guards sit in and watch dozens of monitors. Now, it's physically impossible for a human being to watch 2 things, 5 things, 15 things, and pick up any intelligence. Now, the AI can do that job for you, which is where we come in, where actually it's looking at all of these videos and images and picking out things that is of value to you, or flagging things that's going to be causing a problem. So making these businesses more efficient and more productive basically moves them to that leapfrog that I referenced earlier, not just to do a small evolutionary change where you say, okay, I used to use pen and paper before, now I'm going to use my laptop. Okay, my laptop needs power, I'm going to use a tablet. What we're saying, actually, no, let's just take you from where you are now. And a lot of our clients still use clipboards and pen and paper, which is fine, it works for them. But let's do a leapfrog from where you are to kind of give you a tool that increases your productivity by significant fold. So as a business, become more efficient. But if you can imagine that happening across the entire country, you can imagine the productivity and the new ideas that people actually will be coming out. It's going to be, it's going to be limitless. And I think for me, that's the sort of thing that excites me is that there are going to be big shifts coming, especially in Saudi very soon.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you, and we see it in our industry too. I think that the only analogy I can think of is there are so many countries in the Middle East and Africa that missed the whole landline thing. So, you and I are of a decent enough age to remember phones where you had to, you had to turn the dial in order to make a phone call. And I remember we used to go on holiday to where I'm originally from, Sudan, and they didn't even have that technology. But as soon as they got mobiles, their mobile network in Africa, a third world country in Africa as well, was far superior to what we had in the UK because they just missed that whole landline part. And so there is absolutely that opportunity. But it comes from, I always think that it comes from centrally supported structures, and what the Crown Prince has done in Saudi Arabia overall, but with the vision and in other arenas too, in sports and in technology and all of these things, has really empowered private enterprise to take that like leapfrog risk. It's a really fertile ground. When you go into clients in Saudi, what's the thing that they're most surprised at with the technology?
I think, firstly, a lot of people, if I'm really being honest, are a little bit fearful as well in terms of, okay, it's AI and it's basically visual. There's a lot of information that you're going to capture about my my businesses. I think where they get the biggest surprise is the impact. Like we talked about the reducing speeding fine, for example. What they get a surprise about also by the number of accidents suddenly just disappears. We had one client, I went to a first meeting, it's a water delivery company, and they said the guy walked in with a smiling face. This is the first month I've had no accidents. And okay, we can say it's due to other factors, but would like to think these vehicles started adopting our cameras and these accidents go away. And for this guy, his biggest headache is cars needs to be on the road, driver needs to be present, deliveries needs to happen. If those three things don't happen, he gets a phone call from the top management saying, where's the vehicles, where's the deliveries? So for me, that's probably where the biggest surprise is, that they realize the power and the impact this technology can have in a very short space of time. Of course, there are bigger benefits across the organization. In the finance department, they'll get better return. The HR can take this data to see driver performance and recruitment and disciplining. But for these guys who are on it day in, day out, minute by minute, making sure the right car's on the right road, the right driver's in the right vehicle, and it's going the right direction to delivery point, it was very satisfying to hear. And then once people actually start to use this technology more and more, they can actually start to see the true benefits and the true power of a technology like this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've seen those case studies, and if it happened once, you could say, there's correlation but not causation, but it keeps happening over and over again, and so there's an obvious causation between your technology and things that are directly impacting companies, directly impacting individuals, and directly impacting division overall, safety, efficiency, productivity, and output. And I think that's it. We have so many clients in Saudi Arabia, and we always try and see how does this business align with Vision 2030. And there are model companies that really perfectly align with the vision, and I really think that Rؤية is really one of those. But by cause or by happenstance, it really is, because it works and it makes a real impact to people's lives. Anur, I've kept you for long enough, so I'm going to ask you two more questions, and then I'll set you free.
I'm happy to be asked questions.
All right. So I guess the first of my last two questions is, what's on the roadmap? What's coming up that you can talk about? I know there's some stuff that you can't, but what can you talk about that's coming up, be it geographical growth or technology?
I mean, one of the areas that we're going to spend more energy in is basically introducing more sensors into our devices. So currently we're very focused on the visual aspect of it. We're monitoring the road, we're monitoring the drivers. We want to expand that beyond that. We want to introduce other IoT sensors, whether it be kind of environment, temperature. It may be to do with security. It may be to do with reducing people kind of damaging a vehicle when it's parked up, or theft. So really what we're trying to do is try and broaden the product so that it solves other problems that these clients are facing. And electrification is going to be a big part of those product roadmaps. So I think this is something which is being championed by a lot of countries, including Middle East, including Saudi. And I think recently they did further deals with companies like BYD. Saudi is historically has been known as a commodities country producing oil and gas and natural resource. But I think for me, the Vision 2030 kind of gets us spot on. It's like, okay, this is what we did today, and this is what we used to do in the past. But the future, it has to be diversification, and our products being developed in such a way that it will actually contribute and help improve the life cycle of electric vehicles, because by using the data, we can actually help reduce the impact on whether it's braking, whether it's acceleration, which has a direct impact on the charging and discharging of batteries, which increases the life cycle of the vehicle. So again, return on investment for businesses means that if you're going to buy 1,000 trucks and you can increase the life cycle by 10%, it basically means you can delay purchase of another 1,000 trucks by 10%. So that's an area that I think we're going to do more and more with. We also want to expand into, helping businesses run more efficiently within plants and within factories as well. Again, it all plays into the roadmap of computer vision and using data. I mean, hopefully this is something that we can actually start to deploy very soon as well.
Awesome. So exciting times ahead. So for my last question, I want to go all the way back to the start. So you are founder
Not
of,
about
you know,
no.
yeah, about our failed football careers, I'm afraid. Yeah, no. So uh, you know, you've started multiple companies. You've been in that ecosystem for a good while. If there's someone who's watching this and they are starting out on their new business, or they really want to start their new business and they're concerned about it, what's one lesson you can take from your founder career to impart some wisdom for them?
God, it's a, it's a tough one to answer, really. I think it's there's multiple things, but I think for me, you know, having the passion is obviously the most critical thing, because if you don't enjoy or don't plan to enjoy what you're doing, you know, even famous footballers still have to train every day, even though they're good at playing football. So I think you always have to stay humble and be prepared to continuously learn. And really, it's a game of patience as well, because you could be working very hard 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, maybe sometime longer, and you don't always see immediate results. So having the patience and keep at it and trying, you know, if something doesn't work, trying different things. I think for me, like that's what I rely on the most, because building a business, whether it's existed or doesn't exist, or introducing a new idea that has never been tried at before, sometimes takes time. Sometimes, you know, you come in at the perfect time when the world needs it and you have the right product, it's going to fly. Other times it's going to take a bit longer. And just be prepared to kind of, you know, really work hard and kind of give it your all, because, you know, to change something and to introduce new product, it's not just product development or engineering or marketing or sales or HR or partnership, or, you know, it's like all of those things plus more. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting for me. I enjoy it. It's something I would say to anybody that has any interest in this space. Try at least once in your lifetime. At least you can say I've done it. At least,
Yeah,
whether it's pass or fail, for me that's irrelevant. It's about saying, yeah, I've had a go, I've tried it, and be happy with it.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Anwar. So anyone who is interested in knowing more about Rؤية can Google Rؤية, you'll find it, or go to Rؤية, ROOYA.ai. And you'll also find Rؤية on all the social media channels, and you can reach out to them directly. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Anwar. I've learned an awful lot. Good luck with the continued growth of Rؤية, and thank you for your time.
No, it's a pleasure talking to you, and good luck with the maybe a revival of football career in the future for both of us.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed.
Okay, we can dream.
We can dream, exactly. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Take care. Bye.